You may wonder, given that there is nothing to prevent them from being labelled, how is it that neither dynamic energy nor any basis for what arises exists? I will explain. Within naturally occurring, timeless awareness, a state beyond labels, in which phenomena resolve, whatever arises as its dynamic energy and display is in fact without basis. The way of abiding, in which there is neither bondage nor freedom, is a naturally settled state. What is symbolically labelled freedom is simply a state in which things vanish naturally. Leaving no trace. And since there is no contradiction in labelling it as anything or nothing, we describe it with the words timelessly free. It is by virtue of the fact that nothing has ever existed that labels can be applied, because there is no connection between the label and the actuality. Given that the actuality does not exist in essence, the label cannot be found even if you look everywhere for it. Therefore, since the label and the actuality have never existed, why would you ever think of them as being connected? Even the terms awareness, dynamic energy, display, and natural freedom are merely labels applied to facilitate understanding, simply aids to comprehension through symbols, in light of the fact that there is nothing to label. since awareness itself does not exist in essence, how could anything that derives from it, a place in which things arise, the process of their arising, or their myriad display, actually exist? When things manifest in their continuous way, due to the fact that they do not exist, applying such labels is similar to labeling appearances in an illusion. An illusionist, the magical incantations, and the display of horses and elephants generated by those spells. If these three factors are not examined or investigated, mere appearances seem to arise continuously, one from another. Similarly, in the case of awareness, its dynamic energy and the display that arises due to that dynamic energy, that is, the manifestation of the universe of appearances and possibilities, whether of samsara or nirvana. These simply manifest in light of not being examined or investigated. If the situation is investigated, the horses and elephants are found to be clearly apparent without truly existing. The incantations are the unity of sound and emptiness, leaving no trace. The illusionist's body can be reduced to subatomic particles until there is nothing left to divide. And given that the illusionist's mind is free of being one thing or many, it has never existed. In the same way, the entire universe, whether samsara or nirvana, manifesting as this display, is clearly apparent without truly existing. The dynamic energy of awareness is naturally lucid and empty, and awareness is the unobstructed state in which phenomena resolve, given that it is free of the extremes of being one thing and being many. In fact, it transcends any context of conceptual or verbal elaboration. You might think, when not investigated or examined, sensory appearances are consciousness, given that they occur due to the potential of dynamic energy. But how could we ever hold such a mistaken notion as that? The issue here is similar to the fact that while illusory horses and elephants arise as the illusionist's display, they are not the illusionist. If the illusory horses and elephants were the illusionist, this would mean that the illusionist would no longer be there once the illusory appearances vanished, and that the illusionist was not there before those appearances existed. But whether there is an illusionist or not does not depend on whether there is an illusion or not, or whether it has vanished or not. So these two are not identical in essence. Analogously, sensory appearances and one's own mind are not identical. Appearances are not brought about or eliminated as a consequence of me, nor am I brought about or eliminated as a consequence of appearances. So they and I are not identical in essence. You might object, well, since these appearances are the display of awareness, it makes perfect sense to assume that they are brought about and eliminated as a consequence of me. But there is no problem here once my reply has clarified the issue. Since our collective perceptions of sensory appearances are not brought about or eliminated as a consequence of anyone's personal perceptions, even when I am no longer here, mountains and so forth will remain in my absence. The display that is an individual's personal perception of a mountain subsides when that individual dies. So while your own personal display is brought about or eliminated as a consequence of you, the collective display is brought about or eliminated in association with the collective situation. But surely, you might think, when I myself am no longer here, the mountain that is my personal perception does not vanish. So my display remains behind. Since what is left behind is the collective perception of apparent sense objects, those appearances are perceived by those who remain behind, not by the deceased. This makes perfect sense and presents no problem, because I am not asserting that the collective display ceases, and because of the distinction I have made between sensory appearances in general and one's perception of them as sense objects. For these reasons, there is no connection between the label and the actuality. Because they are sensory appearances, things have no independent nature. So the label and the actuality have never existed. And therefore, you should understand that whatever manifests and however it is labelled, these labels are merely conventional designations. The exalted discourse on the most majestic state of meditative absorption states, those to whom a child is born give the child a conventional name. But that name cannot be found, even if one searches for it everywhere. One should understand all phenomena to be just like that. And the mother states, Subhuti, all phenomena are merely symbols, merely labels, merely names, and are adventitious. If you look for them everywhere, you will find that they do not exist inside you, and so cannot be conceived of as such. They do not exist outside you, and so cannot be conceived of as such. They do not even exist in the interval between these two alternatives, and so cannot be conceived of as such. This is because they are by nature empty. Now I will explain this mode of timeless freedom in more detail. It can be shown that the essence of the ground for all that arises and the nature of its dynamic energy are timelessly free. There is no division or exclusion. There is freedom in the expanse of spontaneous presence. There is no union or separation. There is freedom in the expanse of the sphere of being. Anything at all arises. There is freedom in the expanse in which everything is indeterminate. Two modes of freedom pertain to the essence of awareness. The freedom of that very essence as a state of original purity, and the freedom of phenomena within that context. In its very essence, awareness has never existed as anything whatsoever, and so, from the point of view of its being devoid of substance or characteristics, it is conventionally described as free of the phenomena of samsara and nirvana. As for phenomena being free within that context, with the realization of awareness in its bare state, phenomena are pristine in that state, in which no sense objects exist. Conventionally, it is said that awareness has gone to its naked state, when it has simply become evident, and that things are free in its expanse. But this in no way implies that something has gone anywhere or been freed within the scope of awareness, like something sinking into a lake. Rather, because neither phenomena nor awareness have a finite essence, the situation is similar to the fact that the child of a barren woman could not possibly drown in a mirage of a body of water. At this point, 3 steps can be enumerated on the basis of this bare state of self-knowing awareness. Being directly introduced to it, maintaining that context, and training in its dynamic energy. Once you have been directly introduced to awareness, which is not subject to division or exclusion, as timelessly free within the spontaneously present expanse, ideally, you begin to recognize its very essence. With such recognition, you reach the naked state to which you were led, the natural state of original purity, the true nature of phenomena. Even if you try to proceed further, it is said that there are no tracks left in the sky. That is, any state to be reached falls away. With such realization, there is freedom from fixating reification within the expanse of utter lucidity, the unique sphere that is beyond union with or separation from the limpid scope of awareness. You perceive this pristine limpidity in all its nakedness, and so you gain trust in the meditative stability of the spontaneously present nature of being. Any state of enlightened intent to be reached falls away. Due to the dynamic energy that is the limpid quality of this awareness. The way sensory appearances and ordinary mind arise is perfectly continuous, like the appearance of reflections in a mirror. By training in this energy in its own place, as freedom within the expanse in which everything is without basis and is indeterminate, you become familiar with the key point that natural freedom does not entail renouncing anything. You come to a decisive experience of things vanishing naturally, leaving no trace. When you place your confidence in this unobstructed state of genuine, timeless awareness, these are the three keystones of the great perfection that enable you to take your stance within the spacious state of spontaneous presence, in which nothing need be done. The reverberation of sound states. Furthermore, the essence of the true nature of phenomena is ensured as the essence by its very nature. Since there is no predictable way in which it manifests, there are different paths to approach it. By perceiving the essence, maintaining awareness of it, and perceiving its freedom, one approaches it, perceives it, and gains familiarity with it, so that the very essence of being lies in that recognition. This is a state of trust one reaches. Having come to a decisive experience, one places one's confidence in it. Thus, action that brings certainty comes through these 3 steps. Since the essence is perfect, there cease to be causes.